Welcome to my final video in my 2021 college football season preview series. I'm discussing today the race for the New Year's Six, talking about the top group of 5 teams from each conference that have a shot at getting that automatic G5 slot for the New Year's Six. We're going to break down who each of the conference winners are going to be according to my projections, and then we're also going to talk about obviously which of those teams are going to have the best shot at getting into the New Year's Six, and ultimately which team I foresee going all the way and getting into the New Year's Six slot itself. I'm going to be talking about the overall record projections for each of these teams, and I'm also going to give you what Athlon Sports is projecting the overall records for each of these teams. What I'm not going to do in this video is I'm not going to go in depth explaining why I think each of these teams is going to have that overall record. I may give a couple of discussion points here and there, but overall I'm not going to go in depth. If you want that in-depth explanation, go back and watch the series previous to this. The link in the description, and if you're watching this from a playlist, it should be part of that playlist, but I'm going to give the link in the description for that series where I go through every single conference in the FBS plus the independent. So there's 11 videos in there discussing every single team from college football and what I project their record to be this year. The reason I started doing this, as I've said in my other videos, is because every year, the last 4 or 6 years, I've gone through the Athlon Sports magazine and I've made my own projections for what their overall records would be, and at the end of the year I've gone back and looked, and every single year I've been better than what Athlon Sports was projecting. So this season, I'm putting it on my channel and developing it into this series, previewing the season. It's so exciting. Can't wait. Less than 2 weeks away. August 28th, of course, being those first games. Cannot wait. So let's jump right into this video here, looking at the teams. So we're going to start alphabetically as laid out by Athlon Sports here, going through the American Athletic Conference. So Cincinnati is a team that's always in the running, a team that's coming in highest ranked group of 5 team out of all the teams, definitely in the driver's seat at the beginning of the season. The higher ranked you are, the higher your ceiling at the end of the year. A lot of people say preseason polls don't matter, but now that the BCS is out and that we have a purely human committee in there, there's a ton of human bias that plays into that, and part of that is the AP rankings and just where teams are projected to be. Maybe not so much where those teams themselves are in the AP rankings, but the teams that they beat. That's kind of that's used as a yardstick of measuring, okay, well, this team beat that so-and-so top 25 team, but that team might only have been top 25 because they were ranked in the top 25 to begin the season. We've seen that a ton of times with the American Athletic Conference, where they've beaten up themselves within their conference and beaten other teams within the American Athletic Conference and moved into the top 25, and then wins against those American Athletic Conference teams have been viewed as good enough to get other teams from American Athletic Conference in the top 25. And meanwhile, you have the Mountain West having incredible non-conference records, having great seasons within themselves, but not beating a ton of teams from the Mountain West that were in the preseason top 25, because there usually is only one, potentially Boise State, and sometimes not even that. And so at the end of the year, you have American Athletic Conference having higher ranked teams because they were able to beat preseason American Athletic Conference teams. So the bias is definitely big, and Cincinnati is playing off of that bias this year with an 8 ranking overall to begin the season. So definitely in the driver's seat. I'm projecting an 11-2 record for Cincinnati, which is basically exactly the same at Athlon Sports. They're also projecting an 11-2 record. However, where we differ, Athlon Sports thinks they're going to drop a game in conference. I think they'll go undefeated in conference, but I think they're going to drop games here to Indiana and to Notre Dame. That Indiana game is going to be an upset there by Indiana. Cincinnati certainly the better team in that matchup, but I think Indiana's going to be able to grab a win, a good Indiana team, a team that Cincinnati might be overlooking a little bit. So I think that's going to be an exciting game. Indiana, I think, capable of going in and getting an upset there, which a lot of people will not be expecting. Even if Cincinnati gets past Indiana and beats Notre Dame, this is a team that's going to struggle, I think, in the eyes of the committee a little bit, even with the heavy American Athletic Conference bias that the committee has, at least for the group of 5 slot. Cincinnati fans, I understand your pain when it comes to, you understand bias as well, the fact that you were shut out of the playoffs last season after having a great season undefeated there. So I know that you guys experience bias as well. Being part of the group of 5, that's where it is. The bias is definitely heavy against the group of 5. I just did a video talking about the race for the playoffs. I talked about Cincinnati's chances, but again, the playoff committee is never going to allow a group of 5 team in. It's broken. It's a horrible system. It needs to be fixed. I have a video where I discuss a solution to the system which would allow group of 5 teams to compete at the same level as Power 5 teams. I'll put the link in the description. Definitely recommend going back and watching it. So anyhow, moving forward here, even if they're able to get past Indiana, it is a very weak ACC schedule. They don't play Memphis. They don't play Houston. So it's going to be an interesting run here to see where Cincinnati can end up. Their only quality win would really be against UCF if they are able to run the table. The UCF is the other really good team in this conference that has a chance at getting into that New Year's Six spot. 10-3 projected record, 9-4 by Athlon Sports. I think that they will drop the opening game to my Boise State Broncos. I'm sure a lot of Knights fans are disagreeing with me there, but I do go into a little bit more detailed analysis about why I think that's going to be happening in my American Athletic Conference preview. And I think they'll drop the regular season matchup against Cincinnati, and I think they'll play them in the conference championship game again with another potential loss there. So, but at least 2 regular season losses here to Boise State and to Cincinnati. UCF kind of suffers from the same thing that Cincinnati does. Don't play a lot of great team. They don't play Memphis. They don't play Houston. Tulsa and SMU look like they're going to have a little bit of a down season this year. So their only really good win would be against Louisville. There, I do project that being a game UCF can go out and win. If they can beat Boise State and beat Louisville, this is going to be a good UCF team. Don't get me wrong. I think that this is a very good UCF team. Of course, with a very good quarterback coming back to championship this team here. So I'm excited to see what UCF is capable of getting done. I'm really big on Dylan Gabriel. I think he's a great quarterback for them. So if they can get past Boise State, I think that they will be capable of beating Cincinnati. So this is going to be a team that's going to fluctuate back and forth between Cincinnati and UCF for that top ACC spot. It's going to be interesting to see what happens at the end of the year. All right, moving on to Conference USA. The 2 teams that have at least a shot out of there is UAB and Marshall. I'm projecting a 10-3 record for UAB. Athlon only a 9-4 record for UAB. I'm projecting an 11-2 record for Marshall. Athlon Sports saying 8-5. So I'm much higher on both of these teams than Athlon Sports is. I'm seeing losses here to Georgia. That should not be a surprise to UAB fans. Georgia's going to be a very good team. I'm seeing losses here to Georgia and to Liberty during the regular season. Liberty going to be one of those top teams. Well, they're not going to be one of the top teams in the country. They're not top 25 according to the pollsters, but I think they're going to be one of those hidden gems. They should be considered a top 25 team for sure, with a great quarterback Malik Willis and a great coach in Hugh Freeze, and returning a ton of depth across the board. So I think that Liberty's going to be a really good team there. I think UAB does drop that game. But outside of that, Conference USA, one of the weakest conference in the group of 5. I think everybody can agree on that point. It used to be the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt has definitely improved themselves here. So Conference USA definitely taking that bottom slot. If they can get a win against Marshall, that will look nice for them there. But other than that, no other real quality win, especially if they drop that game to Georgia. All right, Marshall here playing with losses. I'm projecting 11-1 regular season, or 11-2 overall, and Athlon Sports is projecting an 8-4, 8-5 overall. I am projecting here losses to App State and to UAB. So sorry, I apologize for that. 10-2 overall record for Marshall here. 11-2 if you count the conference championship game. So loss here to Appalachian State and to UAB. Appalachian State, a game that Marshall should win, but I think they're going to drop just a game that they're not going to be as prepared for as they should be. And then UAB, I think, will own the regular season matchup there. UAB looking to be a very good team this year out of Conference USA. All right, MAC, really the only team that's got a real shot here, and again, this is another team that I'm much higher on than Athlon Sports is, I think, is Toledo. Athlon Sports projecting an 8-5. I think that this is a team plays a very easy schedule as far as the MAC goes, and even within the MAC plays an easy schedule. I think that they're going to be able to go in here and go 12-1. Not necessarily as good as that 12-1 record, but a team that definitely plays an easy schedule, even by MAC standards, not having to play some of those top teams in the MAC. So I don't see a lot of losses on this Toledo team, a team that I think is going to come back and have a much better year than they did last season. I do see a loss here to Notre Dame. That should not come as much of a surprise. But this is going to be a good Toledo team at 12-1. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the MAC championship game. All right, Mountain West Conference, Boise State, always in the running every single year. They're definitely in the running again this year. I'm projecting an 11-2 record for them. Athlon Sports only projecting a 9-4. I do think that we'll have losses to Oklahoma State, and we'll drop a game we shouldn't somewhere along the line, so I see that coming against Wyoming. I think we can pick up some nice wins here against UCF, Nevada, Air Force, and San Jose State, as the Mountain West again looks to repeat as one of the top conferences, if not the top conference in the group of 5. I'm incredibly excited to see what happens with the Mountain West in general. Should be a great year. If you're a Mountain West fan, I do a great preview of the Mountain West. It was the first video I did in this series. San Jose State also looking to be a very good team out of the Mountain West. I'm projecting an 11-2 record for San Jose State after having a great year last year. They have one of the top quarterbacks in the Mountain West. So I'm projecting 11-2. Athlon Sports only projecting 9-3 for them. I do think that they'll drop games to USC and to Boise State. in that being that in the conference championship game there. But I do think that they'll pick up wins against Nevada and Hawaii. That would look very good for them. Of course, that top quarterback for San Jose State being Nick Starkel. I'd forgotten his first name there, so I had to look that up. So anyhow, I think they'll have nice wins against Nevada and Hawaii. Look to be very good teams in the Mountain West here. But not with that loss to USC being their best out of conference, non-conference matchup. That's going to be tough on them to really compete for that top group of 5 slot. But it's going to be a close game. USC ranked number 15 in the preseason rankings, but San Jose State team that might be getting slept on a little bit, a chance to definitely go get an upset. All right, Sun Belt, we have Louisiana and Coastal Carolina, 2 top 25 teams in the preseason rankings. Sun Belt putting 2 teams into the top 25, the most out of any group of 5 conference, despite Cincinnati being the highest ranked group of 5 team. The American Athletic Conference didn't get any other teams. I was a little surprised. I thought UCF might have a chance to get into the top 25, but not this year, at least not in the preseason polls. I'm projecting a 12-1 overall record for Sun Belt, for Louisiana, 12-1 overall record for Louisiana. Athlon Sports projecting an 11-2 overall record, with a loss here coming against Texas, and then wins against Liberty and Coastal Carolina. Both of those very good wins. Both those teams looking very good. The other team here in the division is Coastal Carolina, projecting a 12-1 record for them, with a loss and that's compared to the 11-2 record that Athlon Sports is projecting. So 12-1 to 11-2. With a loss coming here against Louisiana. But I think they can pick up wins against App State and Kansas. Shouldn't be too much an issue there for them. The issue with Coastal is they play a very weak schedule, even within Sun Belt standards, and a very weak non-conference schedule. So that's going to be a very, very tough season for them to get the recognition they deserve, even though they're coming in the top 25. I don't think the College Football Playoff Committee will consider their wins at the same level that the AP voters, of course, Coastal Carolina kind of becoming that ESPN darling. Everybody seems to love them. So I think they're going to get a lot more cred among the AP voters than they will against the College Football Playoff Committees. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens this year. So that's kind of the top teams out of each conference. Now let's look real quick here at the winners of those conferences and which teams I think are going to have the best chance for that for that group of 5 slot. Sorry, guys, stumbling over my words here the last bit down the stretch. All right, so I'm projecting Cincinnati to win the AAC. That coincides with Athlon Sports, who's also saying Cincinnati. UAB, I'm projecting to win Conference USA in a tight matchup against Marshall, avenging that regular season loss to Marshall. So I think they can get the win there. Athlon Sports agrees. They also think UAB will be winning that one. Toledo, I project to win the Conference USA, to win the MAC. Athlon Sports is projecting Buffalo winning the MAC, but again, at the same time, not having a great overall season. I think they're only projecting 9 wins for Buffalo, but they're very down on Toledo. I think Toledo's going to surprise a lot of people and win against Buffalo in the MAC championship game. All right, Boise State, I think, is going to get a chance to avenge their loss to San Jose State last season and win that game against San Jose State to finish off a nice overall record, a nice 11-2 record for first-year coach Andy Avalos. I'm excited for my Boise State Broncos. We've got a ton of talent back across the board. I won't go any more into that because I did a whole bunch of videos already about that. You can go watch those on my channel. I'll put a link in the description there for you as well. But I think Boise State will win the Mountain West. And then Sun Belt, I think that Louisiana... Oh, by the way, Athlon agrees. They think Boise State's going to win the Mountain West as well. And then I think Louisiana is going to win the Sun Belt, and that one Athlon also agrees with. They think that Louisiana is going to beat Coastal in a very, very close final conference championship game there for Louisiana and Coastal Carolina. So what are the teams from each of these conferences that have the best shot to get to that New Year's 6 bid? Well, out of the American Athletic Conference, it's definitely Cincinnati. I definitely think that they have a very, very good shot. Especially if they can get past Indiana and UCF with a loss to Notre Dame and playing in what is perceived as the top group of 5 conference by most people, they're definitely going to have the best shot. But if they drop that game to Indiana, it's going to be a struggle down the stretch, especially against a group of 5 competition that's going to be very, very tough. If the records I projected overall come true, you're going to see multiple group of 5 teams in the top 25 with the potential for the Conference USA members and the MAC to lose out on that top 25 ranking just because of the lack of respect given to those conferences. But you could see 4 to 6 group of 5 teams in the top 25, and not just in the top 25, but potentially pushing into the top 20, top 15. So Cincinnati, the best team out of that. Conference USA, I don't think they're going to have any teams truly in the mix for that group of 5 slot here. I think out of that conference, Marshall has the best shot if they can run the table here with wins against Appalachian State and UAB would look the best for them. But I think that UAB is going to win that conference championship game. I think they're going to drop, like I said, the games to Liberty and Georgia. I think they have the toughest job of going undefeated in that conference. But Marshall, I think, having the best shot, if they can go undefeated, and a couple of things can happen around the conference here with maybe some unexpected losses to other contenders around the nation, Marshall might have a chance of going as the group of 5 rep. But as far as serious contenders, I don't think that Conference USA is really putting up a serious contender compared across the other teams in the country. All right, Toledo, they're definitely a top contender here if they go 12-1. San Jose State, I think, has a better shot at the group of 5 slot than Boise State does. After dropping that game to USC, they're going to go, my projections, they're going to go on an 11-game winning streak. I think they're going to climb high in the rankings with a chance of really pushing some of those other teams for that top slot. Boise State, with a loss to Oklahoma State and then a late season loss to Wyoming, is just going to be out of it. A similar, if not better, record than similar, because I'm saying 11-2, 11-2 for both teams. So similar record for both teams, regular season 10-2 for Boise State versus 11-1, and similar to other teams across the country, but there is a lot of bias already playing in the Mountain West in the first place, and without that momentum of sustained wins, I don't think that Boise State's going to be able to climb high enough in the rankings to overcome that bias and be able to compete against other teams. But I think San Jose State could. San Jose State's going to catch a lot of attention early on, especially if they can beat USC for sure, but if they can even lose them closely to USC and then go on a winning streak, they're going to catch a lot of attention. I think they're going to get a chance to move up in the polls. So unfortunately, Boise State, unfortunately for San Jose State, not unfortunately for me, but unfortunately for San Jose State, I do think that Boise State is going to win that Mountain West Championship game. It's unfortunate for the Mountain West, I guess, as well, because I do think San Jose State has that best shot, but I think Boise State does repeat. Not repeat, because San Jose State won last year, but I think Boise State does get to win the Mountain West Championship game this year. So I think that probably puts the Mountain West out of serious contention here for the group of 5 slot. Looking at the Sun Belt, there's a conference that has a really good shot at it. After Louisiana loses to Texas, they're going to have, again, one of those teams that's going to be able to go on a streak. I believe they play Texas first, so they could go on an 11-game winning streak there, which would really help get, like I said, same effect as it would have for Louisiana. Pollsters love streaks, so yeah, they play Texas first, and then they can go on a streak. Again, it's going to be a pretty weak schedule, but if they can go down at the end of the season, be on a streak in the first place, maybe getting into the rankings. They're already in the rankings right now at 23. So if they can continue to push that, get a streak going here, maybe climb into the top 15, they're going to go play a Liberty team who I think is going to be going to be undefeated and coming off a win against Ole Miss, a team that's going to be a potentially top 25 team, though last season didn't seem to matter. The pollsters would not let Liberty in when they certainly deserve to be. But a Liberty team that's going to be very good, and everyone's going to be acknowledging that, even if they're not putting them in the rankings. A Liberty team is going to be very good. Louisiana can take that win against Liberty and push themselves even higher, at least cementing themselves as a top 15 team. I am incredibly excited for this Louisiana team. And then I do believe, like I said, they're going to win the Sun Belt and beat Coastal Carolina, who again is going to be a top 25 team, is going to be undefeated coming into that matchup. And they're going to push themselves into contention here, at least potentially start creating some kind. If they're undefeated against Texas, they will create a discussion for the playoffs, though I don't think that they're going to have any chance of getting into it. They'll at least cause people to start talking about, hey, why don't we have the group of 5 being able to be represented in the playoffs, kind of like last season. I don't think they're going to get anywhere close to that, but I do think that if Louisiana, even with a loss to Texas, if they can beat the rest of their conference, beat Liberty, and beat Coastal Carolina, I think that this is a team that could be finishing somewhere around number 14, number 12 in the nation. A very exciting season for them. If they can beat Texas, I think the ceiling for them is probably number 9 or 10. Probably number 10 would probably be the ceiling for them with a win against Texas. But I'm excited to see what Louisiana does here. So that my top 3 contenders out of here out of the group of 5 are Cincinnati, Toledo, and Louisiana. I think out of that, Toledo is going to suffer from not having any good wins on their schedule. Even a win in the MAC championship game is not going to count for very much. Really kind of the MAC kind of dropping into that second overall, second worst group of 5 slot, and a loss to Notre Dame and no real competent wins I think is going to leave them on the outside looking in. Cincinnati starting off strong in the top 10 here already, but with a loss to Indiana, which will not come back, and another loss to Notre Dame, which will push them back as well. I think that they're going to stay towards the end of the season in that top 20, with Louisiana firing up the stretch. So like I said, top 3 teams, Cincinnati, Toledo, Louisiana, with Louisiana firing up the stretch here, having an incredible end of the season, a chance to go 12-1 with a 12-game winning streak with wins against top 25 teams in Liberty and in Coastal Carolina. I do believe that the Sun Belt team Louisiana will be just good enough to jump a couple of slots. It's not going to be by very much because Cincinnati is still going to be considered one of those top teams as long as they win out in their conference, even with losses to Indiana and Notre Dame. I think that Louisiana, though, is going to be, they're going to have all the momentum behind them. They're going to have an incredible year, and they're going to make a discussion that's going to be a case at least, that's going to be very, very hard to ignore. I think that this season, Louisiana surprises everybody and takes that group of 5 slot, takes that New Year's 6 bowl bid, and potentially goes in there, a very good Louisiana team with a great shot to go in and beat whatever middling Power 5 conference champion or second tier team that they give the group of 5 slot. It's really disgusting how they do the system, but I think that Louisiana has a great shot of going in there and beating whatever team that is. So I'm excited to see what happens here. If Cincinnati doesn't lose to Indiana, even with a loss to Notre Dame, they're the team that's going to represent the group of 5. But if they drop that game to Indiana, it's all doors open. It's an all-out race. It evens it out across the country. I think every team has a shot at that point. And Louisiana here, I think, is going to have the inside track to go in and get that group of 5 slot. So that's my projection. That's my projection for the group of 5. If you like this video and you want more explanation for why I projected these overall records, go back and watch my videos from each of those conferences where I discuss that more in depth. I'll put the link in this video or in the remarks section of this video. You can go in and check it out. But I'm incredibly excited for this season. I can't wait. Less than 2 weeks away with the August 28th deadline, August 28th kickoff. So pumped for the season, incredibly excited to see what happens. Give me your feedback, give me your comments on everything that I got wrong, maybe put some of the things I got right. Tell me who you think is going to be the group of 5 champion, how you think your team is going to do this year. Incredibly excited for this year. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and as always, go Big Blue.